Andrew, thank you for coming on the show. This
You're
is
welcome, Micah.
Million Ways to Millions, a show where we like to highlight stories of people who went different routes in building wealth, showing kind of everyday people that it's possible. You don't have to, be handed everything in life or be upper class or whatever. You can just, put in the right strategies, put in some hard work, and be able to make it happen. But thank you for coming on. Could you just give me a quick overview of what your current portfolio looks like?
Sure.
And then give me a good 60 seconds looking over kind of the timeline of how that happened.
Yeah, I can give the timeline a little bit first, just
Yeah,
high
I love
level.
it.
So, I started to think hard about this when I was in college. So that was in the early 2000s. So we're going on 22, 23 years ago.
Yep.
Of how I was going to build it.
Yep.
And so what it looks like now is classic equities portfolio.
Cool.
Just saving money and putting it into the stock market.
Awesome.
Nothing genius about that,
Classic.
right?
Classic. Love
Let
it.
other great companies grow and kind of ride those coattails of those organizations.
Yep.
Another part of my investment strategy that does go back, to this early 2000 time period is building real estate and having real estate assets.
Awesome.
That I own through an LLC I have.
Awesome.
And my newest opportunity right now is starting to look a little bit at crypto, specifically Bitcoin.
Oh, crypto? Okay, cool.
Feeling like the future is going there. The future is becoming now.
Cool.
And so I'm getting into that. And there's something that reminds me of why I probably should at least have some assets starting to go into crypto.
Yep.
I was in business class in 1998 in high school. So this was before college. And our business teacher, and this is, we're still using VHS tapes.
Okay.
He's putting up this documentary of this entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And this person happened to be named Jeff Bezos.
Cool.
And Jeff Bezos saying, I'm going to sell these books online. And I'm like, first, who has time to actually sit and read? And two, who's going to buy a book online? And we're still in the era of going from dial-up internet to like cable modem internet. Didn't see the future of what that could have been, right?
Cool.
Looking back 23 years ago now, or 25 years, but I wish I put some busboy money into Amazon at its IPO in 97.
Love it.
Realizing that maybe something like a Bitcoin is going to be part of our future.
Yep.
And so I'm starting to add that now into my current portfolio. And one other investment vehicle that does go back to equities is I'm very lucky to have an employer-sponsored 401k plan that I contribute to. So you don't even see it. It comes out of your paycheck.
Awesome.
Employer match, I do add a little bit more. And hopefully I don't never have to touch that money, but it's going in every pay period.
Love it. So your whole portfolio here is not like you didn't go crazy and quit your job, start some big company or things like that. You just consistently worked over a long period of time, put money away. We're able to buy a house here, and then save some more, buy another house, and over time, and then continuously invest into these retirement accounts, and you're able to do well for yourself and have a comfortable life, and you're set yourself up so you could retire.
I hope I'm doing well.
Yeah, well, compared to a lot of people, you definitely have been doing great. So I want to go back and talk about the path you took to get here, because you weren't just like handed this huge portfolio or anything like that. You started working at this even when you were in high school, saving some money and putting it aside. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So even before high school, just a little bit of like the work ethic, which I sets like the foundation of the house here in my story.
Yeah.
My mom had a snack and food vending business, vending machines.
Yep.
Soda machines, Coke, Pepsi, coffee in hotels, snacks.
Yeah.
You put the dollar in, or back then maybe it was 55 cents in the mid 90s, and you got your bag of Fritos.
Yeah.
And so growing up in the summertime, I think maybe 12, 13 years old, I would go with her driver and do the downtown route.
Awesome.
So one day a week there, growing up there, maybe I was in late elementary school, early middle school, and, collect the money, fill the vending machines, and bring home, the day's earnings once a week there. And so that just kind of taught me about work and, I think instilled that appreciation in me. Graduated to being a busboy, I think when I was 16 years old, and worked in the restaurant industry, service industry, just like everyone else. Tried to do my best there I could, put some money away. My parents said, if you want a car, go out and buy it yourself. So it's like, all right, so I better work if I want to do that, have a girlfriend and be able to go out and do some fun things with friends. So typical part-time job, was able to put a little bit of money away. That's when I first learned about an IRA. And I think that's when IRAs were coming in, 97 or at least Roth IRAs. And I'm like, it's probably a good idea to put some money in there. Again, didn't put it into Amazon stock, but that was my first like formal investing.
Well, how did you hear about an IRA in high school?
So this is where I'm fortunate. Guidance from my parents.
Yeah.
Said you should probably. We still had to take the action steps to do it, but yes, I didn't wake up one morning and be like, you know what I'm going to do today? At 16 or 17, I'm going to open a Roth IRA.
That's awesome.
I can't even sign for myself.
Yeah, of course.
But some good guidance from my parents. But listening to that, and that started kind of like, all right, you take some money, put it to the side, and you can have some money for fun, right? And that kind of again then started that habit in my life, which is good.
Yeah. So from an early age, you started this discipline. Hey, you got this great like format of showing you what a business looks like with the vending machine. It's a very simple business, but what a great educational tool from a very young age to have. And yeah, definitely, if any privilege you have, so to speak, it would come from just the fact that you were at least able to see this good model. But then you had to follow that up with taking the action of taking the earnings you would take and then putting a little bit aside. And so obviously right then and there you started buying rental properties like crazy, or was there some sort of other step you took?
There was a little bit of in between that. I wish I could give myself that much credit and be like, yes, then I'm going to go right into real estate after I open up this IRA.
Of course, yeah.
It was, I worked my way into that. So graduated high school in 2000.
Yep.
Went to college in the fall of 2000.
Mm-hmm.
I was a business major.
Awesome.
I was interested in going into the military, and so I signed up to trial ROTC, so Reserve Officer Training Corps for the Army.
Yep.
Started that my freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it and was lucky enough to earn then what's called a 3-year scholarship, where Uncle Sam paid my tuition and room and board for my sophomore, junior, and senior year. So I took that burden off my parents.
Awesome.
When I was in college. And then I realized, you know what, I do like having spending money. And I did get a little bit of stipend from Uncle Sam there and being on the ROTC scholarship.
Awesome.
But I went to work at Home Depot.
Yep.
And worked in lumber building materials. I'm like, I know people use this. They're either fixing up their home, but then you also have these contractors. And then you have these like people that have their real estate portfolio and they're coming in to fix their stuff up. And you kind of like learn from them. And so I remember it was the spring of 2002.
Yeah.
I was in this what's called econometrics. I didn't really even understand at the time, but I had to take this course to be a minor in econ. And my professor was going through all these complicated math equations. I was trying to follow along.
Yep.
And then I would kind of fall into daydreaming. And I just remember in my notebook, I'm like, keep investing probably in equities. And I need to be able to buy a property that creates cash flow. And I like jotted that down. I had this little circle of like me kind of like in the middle.
On your notepad.
On my notepad in college. I'm like, okay, the math equations going up there are
this works. This works.
Yeah, okay, way over my head. But I remember vending machines, collecting cash, make a profit, put some to the side.
Piecing it together.
Buy some stocks. Okay. And now if I can add some real estate that adds some cash flow and you have the underlying asset. I haven't done this yet, but this looks good on my like 8.5 by 11.
Yeah. I love it.
Notebook. And I remember writing that down. And that kind of became then like, this is my life's plan. So I guess if you look back, that's 22, 23 years ago, right? And I'm like, I'm going to find a duplex because that's what my parents had a couple of them. I'm like, that's what I'm going to start with. Make some cash with those. So I did have an example in my life. It didn't just
you saw it. But again, it's not like your whole portfolio was bought for you. You started saving your own money in order to start this up.
That's it. And so I worked at Home Depot, and it was my sophomore and junior years. And then I started to put money in an employee stock purchase plan. I'm making $8.75 an hour. That's before taxes in Rhode Island. At Home Depot, part-time in college. And the great thing about Home Depot was I could transfer back to a store in New York State where I grew up in the summertime. So it was just perpetual.
So you're just working year-round.
You're working now year-round, doing pretty well in school, doing ROTC, having some fun still.
Yeah.
And I think I got up to $1,600 in Home Depot stock, $1,500 or $1,600. And in 2023, so now I'm a junior in college, I cashed that in and had some extra cash for New York State first-time home buyers program that allowed you to put down like 2.5%, and I think you borrowed the other 2.5% to get to 5% on a 5-year loan for the down payment.
Awesome.
I know like leverage is sometimes scary, but that's where I learned a little bit about leverage. So I'm a junior in college, going to my senior year. I'm like, we identified a house. In the city of Rochester, New York, not the best area.
Sure.
It had a new roof. It was $44,000 at the time.
The whole property.
The whole property is $44,000 with a new roof. I'm like,
benefits.
Do what? You're young. Just do it.
Let's do it.
Cashed in the stock. took the first-time home buyer program from New York State to help with the down payment loan, paid that off over 5 years.
And that was what?
Got a 30-year mortgage.
What's that down payment look like? Like $2 grand or something like that?
I think it came out to be about $5,000, like almost all in with, and then they covered like some closing costs on a $44,000 property, upstairs, downstairs. I think maybe they were renting around $600 at the time. Fast forward to 2024, that house just got all vinyl siding, 26 new vinyl windows, new
Still
doors.
have it.
Still have it. And Zillow says I think it's worth $129 today, and I owe $21,000. About 8.5 years left.
That's amazing. So yeah, you just started from a very young age. You saved some money together, took advantage of a highly leveraged loan program that's available to you, which is awesome. And that's one of the kind of that's not the military 0% down thing. That was just
those came later in life.
Those came later.
I learned to use those to
your advantage later. Okay, well, to get to that, we'll get to that.
Me,
but
yes.
Right here, before you went off, because was this after you served, or right before you served?
So this is before I served. So I am still at this point. I closed on that house in August of 2023, going into my senior year of college.
Awesome.
So one vehicle, one duplex cash flowing property.
Amazing.
Some dollars and some equities.
Save some money working at Home Depot, you got your college mostly paid for by the military. Thank you, Uncle Sam.
Thank you, Uncle Sam.
And then bought the cash flowing duplex.
I did.
And then you went to go serve in the military.
I went to go serve in the military.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And so during this period of time, you just stopped investing and just let it happen, or?
At this point, I saw the writing on the wall. That it's like, you have an opportunity, Andrew, to do something where you are in this stage of life, and just take advantage of what is about to happen. And so we are talking here about the early to mid 2000s, 2004, graduating college.
Yep.
At this point, we're already a year deep in Iraq. We're 2 years deep into Afghanistan. My branch in the military was field artillery. So I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma after college graduation, and spent the back half of 2004 learning everything about being a field artillery officer.
Yep.
And then was sent to my unit. And I wanted nothing to do with light infantry. I wanted to be in a heavy mechanized unit with tanks and Bradleys. And sure enough, Uncle Sam says, you're going to go to the 101st Airborne Division. And you're going to end up in Charlie Company, 1506 Infantry, and you're going to be their fire support officer. So it's me.
Amazing.
In an infantry company with a rucksack. And we're going to spend 2005 training up to go to Iraq. And I knew that was going to happen.
I appreciate the service. I feel like that's a stressful time getting into that, or was that just super exciting for you?
At that age, it was exciting for me. It's the unknown. It feels like this is what I should be doing. And so, of course, all focus was in that. At this point, because I was fortunate enough to be on an ROTC scholarship, and the money my parents did save for college, they used some of that for a graduation gift for me. And when I graduated in the spring of 2004, they put in down payment for me on a second duplex, and get another $5,000 or $6,000.
Awesome.
So I went to the U.S. Army with 2 duplexes, maybe $1,500 or $1,600 in my checking account, and drove out to Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Love it.
And that was my start.
And then during your time in the military, you still set aside money, just putting it into your stock accounts, putting it into your retirement accounts,
Correct.
And just building up. You talked about this, the 20-year plan you have. You have this 20-year plan, and you just continue to chuck along for it. And I can imagine, I know military people don't make that much money especially when you're serving there, and so
it's public record. You can look
public
up what those pay tables were in 2004, 5. You know exactly what second, first lieutenant, and Captain Eisenhart was making in those years.
Yep,
it's years of service and rank.
Yep, you got it. So you weren't making that much money, but you still set aside some money, and so I'm sure the sacrifices you're making, and even in college, and now you're continuing this effort here. I'm sure you made plenty of sacrifices. It wasn't the most glamorous lifestyle you're living, but you're making it work.
I was making it work. I realized if I'm going to serve my country and be deployed at that point in time, I wanted a simple home front lifestyle at that. So when I did get to my unit, 101st Airborne Division, of course, it was building up because we were going to have these conflicts in front of us for the foreseeable future. And so there was a lot of incoming soldiers, and they were actually building new homes. And obviously something that I was getting more passionate about in life. And so I was like, can I rent an apartment with my housing stipend, or can I buy a house? And they were building all these new builds at Fort Campbell, or just outside of it on the Tennessee side. And so when I finished my officer basic course, I found a brand new home to buy. It was a start. It is the most basic home in the world. You can look it up, 265 Senator Drive, Clarksville, Tennessee. Look it up on Zillow. I bought it for $117,000.
Yep.
Using a VA loan now this time. So now
There
I have
you
VA
go.
benefits.
Yep.
Almost nothing down.
Yep.
Could just get by with my second lieutenant paycheck and housing allowance. But I'm like, if I'm going to spend the money, I might as well be smart about it and hopefully get a house for myself.
Awesome.
And I'm like, all right, now I got my own house and 2 duplexes. Don't have a ton of cash, but at least we're getting some assets. And we did get orders in 2005 to deploy after Thanksgiving to Iraq.
So you're leaving this house now.
So I just got this house for about a year. Literally, I moved in January, got a few pieces of furniture, and I'm like, I'm going to be leaving this house. And I was like, all right, well, I know how to rent houses, so let me call a couple property management firms. Got in touch with one, and when I went to Iraq, I ended up renting that house out to cover all the expenses for my full year in deployment.
Wow. So yeah, instead of like most people would when they're leaving this property, they're like, well, I don't want to deal with them to sell it.
They can sell it. Yep.
You went out and you found yourself a property management company that for a fee can manage the property for you, 10%
gross rent.
But then now you have this property that is you're starting with a loan pay down, starting with the appreciation of the asset, and it can just sit there and cook over time while you go and you serve your country overseas.
I proved the model to myself in Iraq. We were there for just about a year. And we came back in November 2006.
Yep.
House was still standing.
Awesome.
Renter moved out, got it cleaned up a little bit.
Still standing, yep.
And I just moved myself right back in.
There you go.
And I'm like, wow, that actually worked.
Yeah.
And during the deployment, Uncle Sam's still paying you.
Yep.
Even a little extra. And hazardous duty pay of a couple $100 a month.
Amazing.
Wow. We'll take it. I won't say no.
Huge difference,
Thank you, Uncle Sam, and the U.S. taxpayer.
Thank you.
And I was able to, just at the time I was 24, 25.
Yep.
I was single. I saved almost a year's worth of first lieutenant money.
Awesome.
And I'm like, that is going into the equity markets. But this is kind of like, so 05, 06. So you're just coming up to about 08 before things, what I learned what a downturn is. We were kind of on the upturn and things are easy when things are going up. It looks great. This is so good. Came back, reset our units, and then we were under what was called there's stop move order. So usually at that point in my career, Army officers would then go to what's called the Captain's Career Course. We're all on the cusp of being promoted to captain, or just were.
Yep.
But because the needs of the Army, our whole brigade was getting ready then to deploy to Afghanistan in early 08. And so they keep everyone kind of in place because they need the human resources.
Ready to go.
Ready, and to retrain and have some experience. And then you go to Captain's Career Course after your next deployment. I'm like, all right, I've seen this reel before. We're going to do this. I know the playbook now. We're going to train hard. We're going to get ready for deployment. I'm going to rent the house out again. And I'm going to save some money. Still single at the time. Promoted, I think at this point I'm a captain, so I'm making a little bit more money. And I ended up banking almost a whole year's worth of paychecks. Rented the house again, and never ended up moving back into it.
So you had left your house again, and to go move and start preparing to deploy again.
So I was actually back in the house after Iraq, up until we left for Afghanistan. We went to Afghanistan. House is empty. Army moved all my stuff out again. Repeat the playbook. Get renters back in there. Different property management company, actually the one I still use today. So I've had a long-term relationship with them.
Awesome.
Shout out to Horizon Realty Management in Clarksville, Tennessee.
Thank you. Appreciate it. But then again, this whole time, you also have those 2 other duplexes.
They're still cash flowing.
They're still cash flowing, just sitting there, just doing their thing. Whenever you're deployed, you rent this one out. Amazing. And then you come back, you go to deployment again, do the same thing you've been doing. Again, step and repeat, where you just continue to put money aside.
Correct.
And then did you wait until you came back stateside before you bought your next property?
So I was in a transition period then. So at that point, when we came back stateside, kind of in the beginning of 2009, after Afghanistan, that was the decision. Are you going to stay and maybe make a full military career here, or at least maybe 20 years? Or are you going to separate from the military? And a lot of what we call junior military officers make that decision at this 5 or 6 year mark. Half of us stay in, half of us get out. I was in the half that decided to leave the military. I knew that leaving Afghanistan, so I was going to prepare myself to get ready for interviewing and to find a job somewhere in corporate America.
Oh, yeah.
And so when we got back, I told the property management firm, just leave it rented or find another tenant. I lived with one of my good friends for 6 months. Went off, did a bunch of interviewing, and ended up in the medical device space in 2009.
Awesome.
And so now I have to relocate again. And so use VA benefits. I did live in an apartment for about 6 months, got into medical device sales, had to move to Louisiana. Didn't know anything about Louisiana outside New Orleans is a good time.
Yep.
I was in Shreveport.
Good to know.
And all right, I know this playbook a little bit. Let's buy the starter house.
Okay.
Don't want to rent. I'm like, if I'm going to get paid and have to spend the money, I'd rather have the asset than having to just pay rent. Nothing against renting, just as a philosophy. I definitely, after 10 years now, it formed. So I bought a starter home, which I still have to this day. And that gave me, at that point, 4 homes.
Yep.
So the one back when I was in the military outside Fort Campbell, I ended up quick claiming that deed out of my name into my LLC.
Okay. Yep.
The same LLC that held the duplexes, and then had this starter home in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Perfect. So you have the one entity that owns these other entities on your behalf. Now, when you bought that second house with the VA benefits, now you can kind of educate me a little bit on this, because from my understanding, you could only buy like one house with those benefits. Now, are you refinancing so that you can use that loan program again, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's up to a dollar amount, and I have done that where I've refinanced out of those in order to buy the next property. And so the starter home in Shreveport, Louisiana, a few years later, led to a new build home in a better neighborhood. And at that point in time, that starter home, I was originally on a 30-year mortgage when I got it in 2010. And then so I used up the rest of kind of my VA benefits. So I have VA benefits on the home in Clarksville, Tennessee, and the starter home. So at that time, I actually refinanced, and interest rates were low because we're just coming out of the 08-09 crash. I ended up refinancing the home at Clarksville, Tennessee to a 15-year note. So that was almost 15. So that was in 2010.
Awesome.
I'm like, let me accelerate a little bit. There's enough cash flow there. Rates are down. Let me just take it. It's always opportunity. This is the hands that's been dealt to me. Let me play it to the best of my ability.
And you're using a different strategy here, because you're doing all right. You're working full time. You're making money. So you're good there. Like, you know what? Rather than trying to take this cash flow and do something with it, or like, spend it on something stupid, you're like, you know what? Let me just double down here, get that mortgage paid off. So that's why you switch over to that 15-year note, so that you can accelerate that, so that maybe by the time you retire, you now have this completely paid off property that then cash flows that much more.
So much so that I paid it off last year.
Congratulations! There you go.
So
that plan worked in the end. There you go.
It took a while. It took 13 years to get there, but it did work. And a decade goes by so fast. And my father told me, he's like, try to stick to the 15-year mortgages if you can. I mean, sometimes with cash flow and stuff, you got to start 30 and then work your way down, or pay down principal as you see fit over time. But at that time, to move now to this brand new build in Shreveport, which would have given me 1, 2, 3, 4, this would have been the 5th home. I had to do a refi to free up some VA benefits. And
that way you could use that VA loan again.
On this new home that we're going to move into. And by doing that, I was just, the timing of the market, interest rates were coming down because we were getting out of the 08-09 recession. Refinanced that home back in Clarksville, Tennessee on this 15-year note. Freed up cash to now buy another home using my VA benefits.
Number 5 here.
Number 5, which is my new. They always seem to be my primary residence at this point.
Yes, you got to go live in it.
And with no money down. And that cost me $244,900, brand new off the builder in 2012.
I love how you're
just stumble into this.
You didn't stumble into it, because it's this plan you had all along.
That's on econometrics. I was like, these
real
equations, I don't get it, but I do get this.
In college, you're sitting there like, okay, real estate, circle, yes, this is what I need. But you discover this VA loan benefit that you get from serving, and you're like, I'm gonna take this for all it's worth.
It keeps on giving.
So you keep on racking that thing up. So you don't even have to put big down payments. You got to pay some closing costs and stuff.
I walked away with a check in my pocket from that closing. I literally got paid to sign my name.
So you go and serve our country for, was it 4 to 8 years?
5.5 years active duty, and a couple years in reserves in Louisiana afterwards.
So 5 to 7 years in total. You'll serve our country, and then you're using this benefit over and over again to just continue to start these funds where they're just sitting there and they're paying itself down. Yeah. Like, it's not that you're taking a crap ton of cash from them, but you just put it in the background, let it do its thing, and you just forget about it.
It's the magic power of depreciation that comes with it to help with your tax returns. It's paying down the note on it.
Yeah.
And then this great thing called appreciation.
Amazing. So you're just 20 years of just doing this again and again, and it's not like you're trying to do some fancy thing. You're still enjoying a decent life. You have a full-time income that you're living off of, but you're Correct. Being strategic on putting some money aside here, putting some money aside there, living a little bit below your means, so that way you're not spending all the money you got, and you're continuing to start these little wealth generators.
Yeah. And so that was kind of the Shreveport phase. I had an opportunity to move here to the Twin Cities in 2014. So that means I got to leave the new build house.
Yep.
Okay, so what do? Andrew, follow your playbook. Quick claim deed it. Use a property management firm, which I used on the starter home in Shreveport, which I already had a relationship. Put renters in. Fast forward to 2024, still own that house, and we're on a good trajectory of paying that down.
And so with the quick claim deed, and let's kind of break that down.
Sure.
What is that tactic, and what's the purpose of you doing that, for those who may or may not know?
Yeah, good question there, Micah. What the quick claim deed is doing is taking out of my personal name and putting it into an LLC in which I am the sole member of.
Perfect.
And so it just removes liability from me personally to the business entity, which is my real estate holding company.
So before you start renting it out to these tenants,
correct,
you go move it over there. That way, someone slips and falls, they're not suing you personally.
Suing my company.
Yeah, you sue your company. It limits liability. They could still take the house, but they're not going to take any more than that.
Correct.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. So then you move to the Twin Cities. Step and repeat.
Here we go. So we got the playbook at this point.
Very exciting stuff.
It's starting to formalize, and I'm like, I'm a person of average intelligence on my best day, but I'm like, okay, I got a little bit of a track record going here, so I'm like,
going well.
You got to find. I got to start an apartment a little bit to get our feet, just a new area.
Okay.
Wow, real estate is more expensive here now in the Twin Cities. So that was a little bit of a wake up call.
Oh crap.
In my risk tolerance there. So I'm like, I need to save a little bit more this time around.
Yep.
So I ended up actually in an apartment for a few years. The first time I was like in St. Louis Park, great area. Yeah. And in 2016, found the right property. VA loan. Let's get in it. And now just add this. In between getting that property and moving up, I found another rental property back in Rochester, New York.
Okay.
Through agents in which we built a relationship that got us into all these duplexes. And this was kind of graduating a little bit. This was in the suburbs, kind of like also a starter home.
There you go.
And they're like, it's $65,000. It's bank owned. We can get you through the foreclosure process on it. And that's the first any home that I paid full cash for.
Dang.
I just bought it.
Awesome. But this is, again, you just have your LLC.
And so I'm in an apartment, but then I buy a house cash because I'm like, I think I'm going to invest first.
Isn't that backwards?
At this point, I'm like, Andrew, I think that's the right move again.
Yeah.
You know what? Be in an apartment for a few years, then you'll find your right home in the Twin Cities.
But this cash you got, it's again, it's not like you're making multiple six figures, but you have this LLC that owns all the rentals, these 4 or 5 properties now, and this over time. You're putting that extra cash flow into the bank account that this LLC owns.
Yep, LLC's got its own bank account.
It took 10 years or whatever it was, and then you were able to save up enough money that the right opportunity came up, and you were ready for it. Cool, we throw that
with all the intentions to finance it.
Yeah, all the intentions to finance it, and you're like, this is a good time. It's a good strategy for the time being, and it worked out, and you're able to use that money that you had saved up and you had been ready for, and deploy it on this asset.
And Michael, what's interesting about this was the first taste of what it's like to have a cash flowing property with no debt on it. And when that rent comes in, that was motivating. I was like, I need to start paying some of these down even a little bit faster because that feels really good.
Feels really good.
Secured.
What people don't understand is, when it comes to a lot of landlords, is that it's not like you're cash flowing like king, making $1,000 a month, or that entire rent check's going to you.
Sometimes I'm paying out of pocket.
Yeah, for the most part, like a lot of the people I know, you're making anywhere from $150 a month, maybe to $500 if you're managing yourself or something like that. That's the good range, and this talks about apartments as well.
If nothing goes wrong and there's nothing broken that month.
Correct. And so you put some money aside. So that $150, $250, Yeah, I call it that because you're still putting money aside for just in case something breaks and whatnot. And so, but sometimes something breaks, and not you didn't have the money saved up all the way. Say the AC goes out, you got to replace it, $4,000 right there. Roof goes out or something like that. Maybe you got to replace the siding, or oh crap, foundation cracks, things like. There's all this stuff, and so
all the fun ones you named
all
off.
these fun ones. Yep, I listed all the fun ones. But anyhow, you're really not like, it's not like you're netting out a crap ton of money. You're not making, but you, with not having that bank debt, suddenly that 150, 500 goes up by 1,000, 1,500, $2,000 depending on that mortgage payment.
Correct.
Depends on the size of the property and all that sort of stuff. But that good experience. Would do again.
Would do it again.
Would do it again.
Would do it again for the right one. And it's interesting just because when I bought that, I had to put some money into it right away. It was not turnkey.
Nope.
Obviously, it was distressed, so we bought a little under market value. Been very fortunate to have tenants in there stable since actually 2018, haven't turned over. If you go to Zillow today, this says that house is worth $185,000 and it's been up to $199,000. And again, I paid $65,000 for it in 2015.
Amazing.
With about $8,000 in it.
So in 2015, you pay that, and you said today, 2024, it's worth
185.
185. But there's a little bit of time between there. But again, it's a simple game of
it's simple.
Move somewhere.
It's simple as long as you execute on it.
And I love seeing this track record you have of where it's just like, okay, I save up some money, you buy that first duplex. You were gifted that second one, and that's amazing. But then you've been managing it for 20s of years.
21 years.
21 years now. But that wasn't what. 21. It's not like that second one is what really set it off for you. You just continue to do the same thing. Used your VA benefits. You used to have to buy 4 houses now.
5, 6.
6 now.
And I'm yes. So
and so that at this point you keep on repeating that process.
We're graduating up to the level of home too with each of these progressive uses of the VA loan.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a little step down there in street for the starter home, but the next home definitely made up for that.
And a little nicer house, and
the home then in St. Louis Park, and then to the home I'm in right now.
Awesome. And so at this point, how many rental properties do you have? All in.
Yep. So I have 5 single-family homes and 3 duplexes for a total of 8.
Awesome.
And then ownership in a family LLC that owns 2 more duplexes.
Perfect.
And we're looking to parlay that into an owner finance deal for $1.5 million with 3 duplexes and an 8-plex.
All right. So, making some more moves here. And so let's break this down a little bit. So at this point, you got your 8 rental properties.
In my LLC. In my LLC, correct.
And now
you're a primary residence, which is a 9th.
Yep. And now you're starting to do this new opportunity with the family LLC.
The family LLC.
So you and your brothers and your parents are kind of pulling your resources together.
Correct.
And just let's dive into that and explain kind of what you're doing there.
So it would be kind of in parallel with the same strategy that we were employing. Get these duplexes, create some cash flow, pay down the mortgage balance on them, and in the future, hopefully, we're a little bit better off, right?
Sure.
And so we started to rinse and repeat that in the early 2000s, and then following that. And so in 2009, we're like, we should just start a family LLC and hold maybe at least 1 property in it.
Yeah.
And we can use, the proceeds from that, like we all get together because we're living out in different parts of the country for like the holidays to go out to dinner. We don't feel bad if we spend a $1,000 meal. We do it like once a year.
Well, and these are all tax write-offs too, because you're having an LLC, a corporate meeting. This is all legal tax strategy stuff. Everyone does this, and so if you're able to tie it to a business expense, you can help write it off and spend the LLC's money. So it's kind of just like a fun account for the time being. But now you're also, I know we had talked about a little bit. You're trying to use this to kind of leverage a little bit more into the private lending game, which is a really, really cool thing. So this one LLC owns just 2 duplexes.
Now, then they got a second duplex back in 2021.
Yep, 2 duplexes.
So it's a small LLC with 2 duplexes in it.
Yeah.
That creates some cash flow.
Over the course of the last 20 years, that you guys put this together, made it work.
It's working there. It's humming along. The cash builds up over time because no one's really spending it.
Yeah, awesome.
And the repairs are, have been pretty moderate over the years. One is now owned free and clear, and the other one, I think maybe the balance on a mortgage is like $35,000. And these homes, just for our audience here, are probably worth maybe around 100 to 115,000.
Yeah, they're not these amazing,
not worth a ton,
huge houses. And you bought
but
them
have some value.
You bought them in strategic areas,
We
and
did.
so ones where, like if you're
at the right price point,
if you're in Minneapolis, you're paying $300,000 or something like that for.
It'd be equivalent to $350,000 or $350,000 home.
You bought in a good area.
The
The rent versus the income, the price makes sense. So, but how do you turn this into this whole private lending operation we've kind of talked about?
Correct. So that was kind of like the next evolution in like my real estate journey, along with some of my family members. Is you can't always acquire a property, or you can't always go acquire one and fix and flip it when you have full-time careers.
Yeah.
But
you worked a full-time job this whole time.
Full-time job great career. But what you can do is, in your spare time, you can network with other like-minded individuals that are into real estate. And for some, that is their full-time job, is real estate investing. And to be a successful real estate investor, you need capital.
Yeah.
Which I learned I used VA. Mine happened to be VA loans was my favorite choice.
Amazing.
There. Home Depot, saving money in Home Depot in college, and and putting some money inside of my career to invest in it. There are others where they need capital now and are willing to exchange, a pretty good return from an interest rate standpoint to use your capital.
Awesome.
And so we had the family LLC. The money is sitting there in a business bank account. Smart bank. Pay very little interest on the business owners that have a bank account with them, and they go lend that out at a much higher rate. Well, why don't we use our own cash and lend that out, right, to make a larger return than just sitting in this bank account?
Amazing.
Now, there's a piece of leverage that's actually in between, though.
Yeah.
There's a duplexes creating cash every month going into a business bank account.
Yep. Cash flow.
Cash flow.
Yep.
It's just sitting there, not getting a huge return, but the bank's definitely using your money to get a big return, and good for them. That's their business, and they're great at it. There's an intermediate step now that we've added. Get a line of credit from said institution.
Yep.
Use that cash flow to pay the interest only on that line of credit when we're in some of these lending opportunities, because just for the audience, these are short term. So these are usually lending opportunities that are less than a year.
Yep.
And you are now kind of the bank and doing the arbitrage. You are making the spread between possibly a private money loan that's called PML to a real estate investor that may need, I'll use round numbers, $100,000 for 6 months. Yep. They're willing to pay you a flat fee of 20%. And maybe they finish a little early. Maybe you get that 20% in 4 months.
Yeah.
Or if they go a little long, there's penalties built into the contracts where you get an additional payment if they go over their timeline.
Yeah. So what you've done here is that you're looking at doing this. You're becoming the bank. You're becoming your own lender.
We're becoming our own lender to other real estate investors.
And kind of what you've touched on. So what banks currently do is that when you give them their money, they're going and they're taking your money, giving you your 1-2%, little pennies, and then they're lending your money out. And there's a lot of federal, laws in place when it comes to how much they can lend out versus how much they need to have in cash in the bank. That's all regulated. But they're essentially lending it out and making the spread. And so you're sitting there like, you know what, I got some cash in the bank, but not just the cash in the bank. You have these 2 cash flowing rental properties. And so you take out a line of credit, which, how much is that line of credit again?
It's a family 1 through 1 family member. It's $500,000. So
you have a $500,000 line of credit, but these rental properties you own, these 2 duplexes.
2 duplexes.
Which you said
maybe $200,000 together, 250.
Yeah,
not a lot. Wouldn't get you a place in Minneapolis.
Yeah, so it's you're not even putting mortgages on these properties. You're able to find this line of credit, but you have enough cash flow that you can pay.
We can service
interest
only.
Yep.
So you're paying minimum payments. So you're still saving some of your cash flow.
Yep.
Paying the bank the minimum interest only on it. So you're not paying any principal on your line that you have out to the investor. The investor does what they do well. In this case, maybe a fix and flip.
Yep.
So they add value to a distressed property. They go sell it in the marketplace. They pay us our defined return.
Yep.
We pay the line of credit back.
Amazing.
It pays back anything that we use, or our cash flow kind of paid for it, right? And it supplements back the cash flow that we had to use to pay the interest only. And then that maybe it's a rehabber, and then they get to keep their profit. And then you build a relationship, because that's not the first house they're ever going to rehab again, or the last one they're ever going to do.
So you have this line of credit. You take the line of credit out, you give it to this investor.
Correct.
They go do their thing, and then they give you 35% interest on this loan.
20%, 25%.
And so this is a common thing. It's like hard money lending, private lending, both these things. But yeah, these
very
flippers,
common. They're very well-known tactics within the real estate community.
Yep.
And it's
but you're the bank now. You don't have to go do it. You don't have to go apply. The lender, the flipper doesn't have to go apply for this loan.
Correct.
You know the flipper. You see their track record. They show you the properties they've done in the past. You're like, okay, you can do this again.
And see their health statements.
There you go. That's crazy. And so, these tactics, it's not like you need, you have $500,000. That's awesome. And so you can find the ways to deploy that. But some of the opportunities you have for some of this private lending stuff for the real estate investors is not, it's like a couple grand sometimes.
It is. Or you could just be the matchmaker and get a percentage of it.
Yeah.
So you can find someone else that maybe has $50,000 laying around, one of your friends, coworker, whoever that may be, grandma, right? And know a real estate investor that needs that. And you take a small cut of being the matchmaker.
What's that cut look like typically? Do you know that?
So, I mean, it's all privately negotiated. You can make it 5%, 10% deal. It could be part of the profit. That's the kind of the beauty and the creativity of this, which I'm really attracted to, is there are kind of no set rules that you have to follow that's out of a textbook. It's all custom to the situation in front of you. And just being able to work with the parties to agree. This is the one rule. It has to be a win-win-win situation.
Yes.
Everyone's got to receive value out of the relationship.
Well, the flipper is able to get capital in order to do their deals.
Correct.
And whoever, when they're buying this house, no one wants to buy these houses. And part of the reason why some of these flippers need these loans is because they're buying houses that can't be bought with traditional bank financing.
Right. They're in some rough shape.
Yeah. So most bank loans, and a lot of people don't know this, is that most of these bank loans, they have to be in livable condition.
Correct.
For getting a
retail
traditional mortgage.
Yeah.
And so these flippers, they're buying these houses, crap holes. There's no one can live in there. There's a hole in the ceiling. They have all the copper is stripped out or something like that. So these flippers are willing to go take a high interest loan, buy these properties, and then do all the work to rehab them, and then sell them to somebody finally in a condition where a traditional buyer can actually purchase the property with one of these traditional loans. And so again, great value here. The end buyer ends up getting a good property that they can actually buy. The flipper ends up making margin there, and then you're making money to float them this money for this period of time, and you're making your 35% interest.
At one point, I thought I was going to be maybe an investment banker. I thought in high school that was the right thing to do, and I kind of read about it. And nothing against traditional maybe investment bank, or especially like a trading desk at a large bank. It's just making money for money's sake. This is making money in doing, in this case, maybe residential redevelopment. That adds value back to communities.
Amazing.
And so it has a very just cause. If you ever read the book, kind of Infinite Game.
Yep, I love that book.
Great book right there, right? And so we're making our communities better. And that's why, to me, it does have to be a win-win-win, because there's usually like 3 or 4 parties that are involved with that. The finances and doing well is a byproduct of that.
I think some people get caught up with the idea of people making money and making these margins and stuff like that. But I think the best way to think about it is you're creating value.
You have to create value somehow to someone, some way.
If this flipper kept on making crap hole properties, guess what? People are going to stop buying them. They're going to get a bad reputation around town. All the realtors around town would be like, well, yeah, no one wants to buy this guy's stuff because there's always issues with it. Correct. So he's got to consistently, in order to do this for more than 2 years, he's got to consistently make good product and provide houses that are valuable to the end buyer. And then I say valuable, meaning that they're in good condition, they have these nice finishes. That's how these properties get put out there. And then on top of that, you need to have a great relationship with this real estate investor, where the investor is able to get you your money back, but then you're able to provide the value of the investor not needing to front all this cash. And so there's all
perfect ecosystem.
There's a great work, people working together, which I think is why all these a lot of the real estate investors I've met, and we both met at one of the Minnesota Real Estate Club in town. So I love that group, and I'm always surprised at these real estate events of people who are just the nicest people you could ever meet. And it's not like they're these money grubbing guys. Yeah, there's a couple of those. You got to watch out for those. But for the most part, there's these people who have this amazing mindset. And I think it's because there's this just infinite mindset in their mind. Their wealth is not finite. It's infinite.
It's the go-giver mentality. So I'm a big follower of, never met the person in my life, Pace Morby.
Yep.
We both know Anthony. I mean, he's super inspiring. Anyone that came from the Fortune Builders community understand Merrill. they're all cut from the same cloth, and you can recognize them from 100 miles away.
Amazing.
And those are the people that, like, I'm attracted to and want to be around.
Yep.
And that's when I want to build my community, and I want to add value to them. And if I happen to also be able to do well along the way, I just love this journey. And I know I'm home.
It's such a great way to live life, where you have sacrifice on the beginning, and then you've sacrificed also with just being patient over a long period of time. And so you've been able to build this wealth, which gives you access to kind of play this game and provide value to people in this great way. And you have this flexibility of being able to do the private lending. You got some rentals and things like that. It's such an awesome world to live in when you see all this opportunity out there, and then being able to network with these great people who have this heart of gold to connect to other people and to work with other people and to provide value to them. Awesome. I love hearing that.
It is. I love what I've done, and I'm excited where it's going to go, because this journey is not over yet. You're right. It wasn't instant overnight at all. And there's been times like, no, Andrew, you don't want to go buy that car. Save your money. Make this investment first, right? Eventually you'll pay yourself. I've had some good fortune my way along this journey.
Yep.
But it's very doable, because I keep going back to thinking, you left your parents' house after college graduation, came home for a couple of weeks before you went to Fort Sill. You literally left with $1,500 or $1,600 because you spent all your other money kind of getting two, or at least one duplex going, and then you were just starting another one.
Yeah.
And that's where it started.
Awesome.
And then you find your formula. And then you just start working that formula, but it doesn't happen overnight. And I got a ton of failures along the way too. It has not been
it's not
been the Autobahn all the way around. There's been some. I got to get over the Rocky Mountains here a little bit, and I've fallen hard on my face several times.
Yeah. But you persevered. You sacrificed in the midterm. You took the hits when they came, but you continued to go on. You took some risk. Like there's a lot of risk involved. Where you've definitely fallen on your face already before.
But some scary moments, yeah.
In the end, it's really worth it.
Definitely. And I don't even know what the end looks like yet. I just know where I'm at right now.
And I'm super excited. We've had a lot of great conversations about the private lending you're getting into and some of the other ventures you want to try out. And I'm super excited about that. And I'm excited, we're friends, and excited to see you continuing to do better and better. And maybe we work together a little bit too, which would be great.
I'm looking forward to that.
Super excited about that. So, taking your journey the past 21 years that you've been working hard at, what is some advice you give someone who's just getting started, who's in various financial situations, but they're like, hey, I want to start building wealth one way or another? What's the best advice to give them?
That person needs to kind of find their tribe or their network. I think that, right? Because you're going to need a community of support. That starts with your own family, or maybe those outside of your family, where that if this is a goal that you have in your life, find others that are on that path or have made some accomplishments along the way towards those goals, right? You got to just surround yourself, I think, with that good energy. And some examples, right? Not all of us wake up in the morning and be like, oh yeah, I got to go open a Roth IRA and start putting 15% of my paycheck in it. Unless someone kind of tells you or guides you or shown the way that they can.
And also it's people who can encourage you in the downtimes, because it's hard enough as it is. You don't need somebody.
So that's when you really need something. Yeah, it's easy when it's easy.
You don't need someone nagging over your shoulder, being like, "Oh well, I knew it. Yep, the AC went out. That means you got to quit it all. It's such BS." But you need to have people that are willing to encourage you and be like, "Yep, it's part of playing the game, man. Keep going at it."
So I remember this back in not that long ago. So this is 2020. So I'm done this for a while.
Yeah,
and maybe I got a little too far ahead. I'm like, the part of real estate I didn't really master was like, I need to learn how to fix and flip. Real estate, you got to fix and flip.
Oh yeah,
because you're part like you can do rent. It's easy to collect the rent. Sometimes it's actually hard, but but like you got to fix and flip, right?
Yeah.
I got into too many fix and flips, and I had to with the help of family members and other support, unwind those, and I could feel like the desperation. I had some assets, but there was some leverage there, and this is getting in the spring of 20 during, of course, COVID's breaking out.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you got 5 homes in a couple different states, and none of them are going well. And you're out of, you're looking at 7 figures in the face.
Yep.
And you don't know who's on first. That's a rough spot, and that's where friends and family, they can keep you going. This shall pass. Right? You can't give up. You quit.
Nope.
It's over. That is guaranteed life.
Yep. If you say
quit,
no,
it's done.
If you say no, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. You're done.
If you persevere through, sometimes it doesn't go well.
It does not go well. And that's where your network, those that you trust, a mentor, is going to help. When it's easy, anyway, it's all good when it's easy street, right? It's right in those dark moments. And there actually is some of obviously the best learnings in life, because you know what that feels like. You do see some people's true character.
Yeah.
And then there can be some diamonds in the rough there.
Yep.
And how you and I ended up meeting just through Minnesota Real Estate Club came through a connection when I was in this dark spot in kind of mid 2020, which was a real estate agent that ended up helping get out of some of these projects here. And she's like, "You got to join Minnesota Real Estate Club." And I'm like, "Thank you very much, Don."
You done. And again, it's just surrounding yourself with that great network, and it's not a solo sport. No,
it's not a solo.
Being
not at
able
all.
to pull this great network of people you have around you, and sometimes it's simple as just like, man, who's got a drywall guy, and sometimes it's, man, I need
exactly who's the plumber. Oh, you got a good electrician, or what would you do in this situation? You start working the phones, right? And if you have that network, the good news is no one's perfect, and someone has been there before.
Amazing.
It may be even a little bit worse.
Even a little bit worse.
And that's the go-giver mentality.
Yeah.
Let me, walk you through this, because I've seen this before. I've lived through this before, and you kind of lean on those, within your network, right? And then all of a sudden you see a little bit of clarity. Hey, we can overcome this right now.
Yep.
Thank goodness in America there's even bankruptcy. You even had to hit the total reset button.
Worst case
we don't want to get there, but
worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, and I've been inspired by so many people that have said I've had to hit that reset button. And I much higher than I was in life, and I had to start over, but they had the skill set and the mentality, and you know what? Come hell or high water, I'm gonna figure. If I can figure out the second time or third time, I'm gonna do it.
Yep. Amazing.
But back to the kind of our audience here. Where did they start? I did not make this up. This is Confucius, I think he says, the philosopher. The journey of 1,000 miles. Something starts with the first step. You just got to take an action step, because it's guaranteed nothing will happen if you do nothing. That taxes death.
There you go.
You got to take an action step. And to me, that's starting to reach out, do your research online, get books, build a network. In this day and age, too, with all the social media, 20 years ago, it was not as just on-demand learning as there is with the University of YouTube or any of our social media platforms to connect with gurus or
if anything,
the right communities.
Now is such a great time because of there's the connections in place where you can reach out, you can watch. When I first started, it was watching a bunch of YouTube videos, podcasts, and reading every book you can get your hands on. And then on top of that, networking and getting out there, meeting people.
Put yourself out there.
And putting yourself out there and getting in a network of people who are pursuing that same goal together. Andrew, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Micah, thank you for having me.
Amazing experience. You have a good one, man. Thanks for coming on. Dude, that was a good Confucius quote. I like that a lot.
I had it. It's on a...